Welcome to number 21 of our Derech Hashem extravaganza. My name is Rabbi Mordechai Goodman of Jewish Education in Manchester, and I'm here for Kesher and Sight Or. And we're going through the book, The Way of God. If you've just clickbaited this and you're like, what is this? Probably want to run back to number 1, where there's an introduction to say that we're going to be going through this book, which is the quintessential book of Jewish philosophy. It's kind of like a condensed Jewish philosophical dictionary or thesaurus, and it's called The Way of God by Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, written in the late 1700s, and it's now a quintessential book of Jewish philosophy, and we've been doing it like a course, basically, and we've got to page 65, which is section 1, chapter 4.4. So you can look at this on Safari or anywhere else, wherever you can get a copy of the actual main text. I'm utilizing the Feldheim edition with a translation by Aria Kaplan, and this is where we got up to halfway down page 65. What were we talking about? We're talking about a fascinating idea, which is the utilization of physicality to achieve spiritual means. Amazing idea. The idea is that we don't say that you have to divorce yourself from physicality to obtain spirituality. You have to utilize physicality to obtain spirituality based upon the rules and prescriptions set up in the Torah by God as he gave it to Moses. That's the bottom line. So if God says on certain days I want you to eat, and on certain days I don't want you to eat, certain days I want you to go certain places, certain days I don't want you to go to certain places, then that's the utilization of physicality on that particular day. But notice everything he tells us to do is always involving something physical. If you're Jewish and you're watching this, close your eyes and think of the first thing you think of a Pesach. Probably matzahs, maybe maror, a haggadah, a table, cups of wine, I don't know. What's the first thing you think of for Hanukkah? A menorah, donuts, I don't know, latkes, I don't know. What are you going to think of for Purim? Hamantashen, a grogger, a rattle, a scroll, a mask. Pretty physical stuff. What do you think of a Yom Kippur? A book, a kittel, no food, probably a shawl. What do you think of for Rosh Hashanah? A shofar, maybe scales of judgment even, again a book. What do you think of for Sukkot? Probably think of a booth, a wand made of 4 different species of plants. I mean, what? You know what I mean? Most of the things you think of, and anything in Judaism, any mitzvah, is essentially tied to some kind of physical component. Shluch hakan, sending away the mother bird, I would think of a nest with a bird in it, you know. That's, everything is it's very physical based because that's the way God made the world. Now, we said last time that he set up a series of patterns and restraints. What are these patterns and restraints? A pattern is a set of behaviors that he wants you to do, and restraints are a set of behaviors that he's telling you he doesn't want you to do. Let's get this straight. Rabbeinu Yonah in Sharei Tshuva, Shar Gimel Ois Tes. That's the gates of repentance, gate number 3.9. That's a memory thing there. You probably look that up, make sure that what I'm saying is accurate. I think that's accurate. Have I got a note or something on that? Is it Shar Gimel Ois Tes? I think so. In Shar Tshuva, I think so. Look it up. And he says there that the foundation of reward, the mainstay of reward, the most reward you're going to get is for keeping the positive mitzvahs, not for avoiding the negative mitzvahs. You're going to get more payment, quote unquote, from God for doing something which he's asked you to do out of your way, rather than refraining from something he's told you not to do. Now, I usually get quite a bit of flack when I say that in group shiurim or group courses where there's lots of people there. Yeah, but Rabbi, I find it much, 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 much harder to avoid doing X than I find it to actually do mitzvah Y. The answer's like this. Avoiding something is not putting unleaded petrol in a diesel engine or not putting diesel in an unleaded engine. It's not damaging the system. That's the command. Don't ruin my system. But a lot of that can be done just by sitting tight and not doing that. When you're asked to go and sit in a sukkah or keep Pesach, there's a tremendous amount of physical effort that is required on your behalf to comply with that. And even if you think, no, it's much, much harder for me to avoid sin X, which is a negative sin, than it is to comply with any sin, with any mitzvah Y, which is positive, then you're probably not thinking hard enough about the halachas and the kavanas in this mitzvah that you're thinking about. Whenever you make brachas in front of food, are you thinking about every single kavanah that you're meant to have according to the Shulchan Aruch? The words brachat Hashem lekenem melech ha'olam. There's a lot to be thinking about there, and if you don't, you're only making brachas b'diavad. So the truth is that doing positive things is harder and more rewardable and more wageable than just avoiding the negative things. But avoiding the negative things are also wageable and very much payable. But the real deal of big bucks come from the patterns of behavior, not just complying with the restraints. See it there, Rabbeinu Yonah, Shar Tshuva, I think Shar Gimel Ois Test. That's gate 3, point number 9. Okay, so let's jump into page 65, second paragraph up from the bottom of the page. If it were not for the decree that man must die, complying with these patterns and restraints would allow the soul to strengthen itself and dispel the body's darkness. We talked about or with an aleph, light, versus aura with an ayin, skin or leather, last time. And really the soul would have the energy, if it's following this prescription, to transform the human body into an angelic-like being. But because of the decree that man must die, and you can't do this now in one phase, this cannot be done in a single stage. The soul strengthens itself through these observances, and the body is potentially enlightened. It's definitely got a lot of money in credit. But even though its enlightenment cannot be immediately realized, man therefore requires, during its non-ideal state after Adam's sin, what you really get out of this is a potential which is going to become actualized. And at the proper time, that potential will be realized. We're now at top of page 67. We're going to start point 5. Very important line. If you're following with a book and you're utilizing a book, highlight the next line. These patterns and restraints are God's commandments. See, not making it up. And if you write in, see page 253 and page 335. It's a cross-reference there in the Sefer for you. These include both positive commands, like I want you to go and do this at a certain time in a certain way, versus prohibitions. I do not want you to do this activity unless some other rule applies. It's basically forbidden. The purpose of each commandment is either to allow man to earn and incorporate in himself a particular level of true excellence, gaining something which is outside of you, such as if you keep Pesach, you gain a certain amount of consciousness which is only associated with the doing of Pesach. You can't get it any other way. If you keep Shabbos, the Sabbath, then you get a certain consciousness development which is only available with the keeping of the Sabbath. If you lay tefillin, if you put on phylacteries, the black boxes on your head and your arm, you get a certain bonus to the soul and body that you cannot get in any way by doing anything else. You can't expect to get that through keeping Shabbos or through keeping Pesach. Okay, it doesn't work like that. Each mitzvah is like a component on a motherboard which has its own place, function, and purpose within the entire framework of the Torah's legislation as to how energy flows through those components, those mitzvahs, to have its overarching concept as to what the motherboard's meant to do, which is generate an operating system which you can utilize to make emails. Right? How does the resistor and a capacitor and a chip do that? Well, it's very clever. There's like this circuit board and they're all on there, and energy, when they throw through those components in just the right way, makes, I don't know, computer screen light up with all kind of letters on that you can use to communicate to people all over the world. Wow, that's really a clever design. Yeah. What's telling you that that component needs to be right there? The design of the motherboard. The motherboard is the Torah. That's why in your Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, learning of the Torah is equivalent to everything else. It's the biggest mitzvah you can do, because when you're learning the actual circuitry system itself, you'll understand the place, function, and purpose of all components, all mitzvahs or averos, all positive or negative things, in their place, function, and purpose perfectly. Which is why it's so prized to learn Torah in the Jewish faith. Okay, I'll just read that again. The purpose of each commandment is either to allow man to earn or incorporate himself a particular level of true excellence, like keeping Pesach, or to remove an area of deficiency and darkness, like not doing something negative, like not eating pork. This is accomplished through doing what the commandments require, positive mitzvahs, and avoiding what they forbid, negative mitzvahs lo saseh. So God says, do not do this on such and so. Don't be cruel. You're not allowed to do any animal cruelty unnecessarily. You can for medical reasons and for food reasons and things like that. You can't just be cruel to an animal. that will imbue in you a sense of negative energy, which will keep you away from the Creator. And God is generating this entire universe only as an opportunity for you to earn right to get closeness to Him. So don't go around being cruel to animals, because that's going to be a break between our relationship. That's not what I want you to do with animals. That's not the fact that animals are cruel to animals. Are cruel to animals all the time. They eat each other alive. If a lion takes over a pride of lions, the first thing he does is kill all the children. Can you imagine, like, a man marries a woman and he has stepchildren, he slaughters them to allow the woman to come into heat in estrus, and so he can have his own children with them. Lions do that. Hashem says, not for you. Not for you. That's not the way you do it. That's what the lions do. That's the way I created them. That's what I want them to do. They have their job to be lions. You aren't a lion. You're a human being. And lions can't achieve what you can achieve because they're not tussling with spiritual and physical concepts and utilizing physicality in spiritual ways. That's not what that's. They are the system. They are blobs of physicality doing their job. So don't compare yourself to them. You have a different set of rules. Your rules you take on voluntarily. Their rules are instinctive. They have to obey them. Okay. The nature and detail of each individual commandment, however, are based on all the aspects of man's true nature and character. These are the components on the motherboard, why that is a capacitor of that value, and that's a resistor of that killer ohm level of resistance, as well as that necessary perfection which you need and what it can do for you. Each thing, whichever mitzvah it is or prohibition, has its particular conditions and limits as required for man's attaining this perfection set by God. He sets up, right, this is the kind of thing I really want you to do, and this is the kind of thing I really, really don't want you to do, and this, if they turn up, you can do that. You might not want to do that. It depends on the situations, It could be this different for different people in different times. Okay, so there's rules for each particular thing. The highest wisdom knows all this, as well as the true nature and purpose of everything that exists. God therefore took everything into account and included everything necessary in the commandments of the Torah. It's thus written in Devarim, which is Deuteronomy, chapter 6, verse 24. God commanded us to follow all these rules that He may grant us good. What does that mean? If you prove your obedience by doing these rules, by complying with the positive mitzvahs, doing what I ask you to do when I ask you to do it, and complying with the prohibitions, not doing what I command you to do when I'm telling you not to do it, then you have earned for yourself unparalleled closeness to God because you chose to do it. You aren't being forced upon Him. You are actively choosing. And actively choosing means you feel very justified when you get a wage. And getting a wage is better than a charitable dole-out because it feels better for you. And it feeling better for you means it's a more perfect giving. And the fact that it's a more perfect giving means that God, who is ultimately perfect, would be happy with the fact that He's given a perfect giving, which is why He gave you the choice to start with, if you remember from all those times back that we did. And He can't fail because He's perfect. So the only way He could do it is like this. There's no options for Him. God doesn't have options of doing things in a better way. If He could do things in a better way, He'd have done it in a better way. He's not going to make the universe out of chocolate and custard. Could He do that? No. Well, I mean, He could, but it wouldn't be as good as, it wouldn't be this one. It would be a universe made out of chocolate and custard, right? But chocolate and custard obviously aren't the best way to make a universe, because if they were, He'd have done it. He doesn't fail. He's not choosing between good and bad. Good and bad is something really in the perspective of humans. Truth and falsehood is possibly where God's, as it were, holding on that one. He knows what's right and what isn't. He invented the idea of falsehood, actually. He invented the idea of perceivable distance from Him, which could be false. So true, He's really beyond all that as well. The idea of any kind of differentiation or choice, He's beyond. He's utterly unified, utterly simple. The concept of differentiation can only be in something that is separate, created, and distanced from Him. Bit of chazara there, a little bit of revision there, wasn't there? That was off topic, but it's always good to do a bit of revision. Okay, you know what? Let's jump into point 6 together. Oh, there's a great thing with soldiers here. I don't know if I remembered you last time. I've got to tell you something I saw with some soldiers. I think they're Royal Fusiliers, if I'm correct. I'm not sure. We're going to the regiment later, and let's see if we can get to that, Marshall. Point 6, get your highlighters ready if you've got the text. Could you highlight the first sentence of point 6 on page 67? That's section 1, chapter 4, point 6. Highlight, man serves God by observing all of His commandments. And the root purpose of this service is to make man always conscious of God and to turn him in God's direction. Wow, it was worth turning up and listening to this YouTube just for that. Let's do that again. Some guy comes up to you in the street. I hear that you know something about Judaism. Just wanted to ask you, what's the reason for all these commandments? Answer: all commandments are only there in order to make you more conscious of God and turn you in his direction. They're all doing that, one way or another. Let's go off for a second. It's going to be worth it. It'll be fun. Come with me. I'm actually going to set you some homework. I haven't set any homework. I think we're at 21 now, something like that. I've never set you any homework. I'm setting you some homework. Here's some homework for you. The homework must be no more than 15 seconds per month. No more than that. I'll be upset if you do more than that. Just start off normal, 15 seconds a month. Let's pretend a guy lives 120 years. And he comes upstairs to heaven, and they examine him, and they go through all the details. Now, they're going to count how many times he walked through a doorway with a kosher mezuzah, which is the scroll which you find on Jewish dwellings on the doorposts. Now, you can count the same doorway that you go through multiple times separately. So if you have a front door and you go in and out every day, like let's say once in the morning, once in the evening, that counts as 2. How many doorways with a kosher mezuzah do you think an Orthodox Jew walks through in his lifetime? Millions? Like ridiculous numbers. If you live in Jerusalem, all the gates, all the arches under buildings and everything all have mezuzahs. So I would say that's like really, really a lot. So if the court were to ask him, Jeffrey, let's call him Jeffrey, we see that you've walked through 3 million doorways in your lifetime with a kosher mezuzah. All right. I mean, it's not something I would, take note of. We've taken note of it. We wanted to ask, of those times, how often did you absorb the message of the mezuzah? What? What message? There's the mezuzah, yeah, and it's on a doorway. Yes, I've seen that. It's a very Jewish cultural thing to have. Yeah, we have these scrolls. Yeah, there's a scroll inside of there. Yeah, I know there's a scroll in there. There's words on that scroll? Yes, there are words on that scroll. Do you know what those words mean? Yeah, it's the Shema. It's the quintessential Jewish statement of faith, isn't it? Yeah, it is. If I thought about what that means? Well, I don't exactly know. Okay, well, it's the first line of the Shema, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Listen, O Israel, the Lord your God, the God is one. There's only one God. There's not multiple gods. There's only one God. So what's the message of that? Well, there's only one God. Very good. That's the message of the first line of the Shema. Then there's the first chapter of the Shema saying, Va'ahavta. You've got to love your God with all your soul, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your resources. Heart, soul, and resources. What does that mean, basically? You've got to love him, actually actively love him with everything you got. And the third message comes in the second paragraph of the Shema, and that's all that's in there, which is for hire. And that says that there's going to be reward and punishment commensurate to your deeds, which means everything you're doing is being recorded, CCTV'd, and has to be given accounting for, and we will pay you back exactly by what you did. That's the message of the mezuzah. 15 seconds a month, I'm setting you homework. Set a reminder in your phone for 15 seconds once a month, totally privately, not in front of anyone else, just between you and him, between you and God, to stand by a mezuzah and absorb that message. There's only one God. I've got to love him with everything I've got, and he is watching me, and it will recompense me for every single deed. That's the message of the mezuzah. Now imagine a person that did that every time. Profile that person for insurance purposes. That's a tzaddik. That's why the Rambam says in Hilchos Mezuzah that mezuzahs have the din of being malachim. They're like angels. Only if you take the message with you. Having one on the door and leaving it there, okay. And you've got to do it because it's a mitzvah to do it. But you really should be absorbing the message of the mezuzah. Once a month, 15 seconds, no more. But at least now Jeffrey can turn around and go, oh no, I heard a thing on YouTube. And I did, I do remember there was that message of mezuzah. I did it once a month, so it was 12 times a year. And I did. So, yeah, I did actually sometimes. Oh, wow. So, judges, that's amazing because most people that come up here don't even know what we're talking about. The message to them as it is. Could you imagine every time you walk into a room, you think there's only one God. I have to love him actively and I am being judged for my deeds. Now, completely it's brilliant. That's the idea of all mitzvahs turning you to God consciousness one way or another in order to make you conscious of God and turn him in his direction. Mezuzah does that surely, but only if you're active in the thinking of it. That's the same with any mitzvah, tefillin, anything else. You've got to be active. Remember, this is called the way of God. Don't think God's going to jump out the wall and get you and go, ha ha, boo, here I am. It's for you to dig to find him. You do that with these 15 seconds a month. That's how you do it. That's the practical way to find a path to him. It's like energy in the wall, and then you put a plug in and you can draw the energy out. You've got to get yourself a plug it in, correctly wire it, put the right fuse in, and then turn on the socket. It's down to you to do the rest. He's organised the framework with the energy in the system. It's down to you to plug in. We'll get on with more of this next time. You did great. Tell me how your homework goes. 15 seconds a month. Looking forward to hearing good reports. All the very best. Have a fantastic week. All the best.